Dr. Jazz.
Thank you so much for taking the time. It's
absolutely my pleasure.
You know, I first stumbled upon you when you already did Original Visions in mid-90s. So
wow, yeah,
when
that's a while ago.
That's a while ago, yeah. So I followed you, and then the other day I played a gig like the other day. I mean, in July with Howard Curtis.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we were like, man, you're from Washington. Yeah, he's from Washington. You know, so we're playing another gig in October, hopefully, and so.
Yeah, Howard's great. I wish I'd had a chance to play more with him before he moved to Europe.
Yeah.
You know, we did a few gigs and
with Gary, right?
Yeah, and then we did that one recording found on Sorted Streets.
Yeah, I love that
Gary Thomas. I mean, that's one of my favorite Gary Thomas records, at least from my end, in terms of what I felt comfortable playing. In terms of not being just thrown out there. Here's some crazy harmony with some wild rhythm, and we know you'll do great. I'm like, but anyway.
Yeah, that's heavy stuff. Yeah. I mean, I want to come to Gary later, but yeah. So we stumbled upon you with Howard, so that's I have to mention this because since both you guys are from Washington, from DC. So
well, I should clarify. I'm actually not from Washington.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I don't live there now.
Yeah, sure. I know that. Yeah.
I'm spent some time there. I moved there when I was 15 years old.
Ah, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
So I just went 2 years of high school, and then I was kind of in and out. But altogether, it was a good 17 years I was there. So I mean,
okay.
I'll take it, But just to be clear.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I thought you were. Yeah. I kind of associated you since those players are from the DC area. That you kind of.
And man, they have a great scene there.
Yeah.
They have a fantastic scene there. Now I think it's even stronger than it used to be. Yeah. I think it's even stronger. When I was coming up there, it was a great guitar town, actually, because you had the what they call the military service bands. So you had like the Airmen of Note, which was the Air Force band. You had the Navy Commodores, and you had like the Army Blues band, I think it was.
Oh, wow, man.
And then there were a number of smaller units too, but the guitar players in those bands, which were Rick Whitehead, Steve Abshire, and Paul Wingo, were incredible musicians. I mean, they're all, well, Wingo is no longer with us, but the other two are still around and still playing great. I mean, highly skilled, and they were doing all the gigs. But the thing that was kind of nice for me coming up, I guess it was in my early 20s, when I first met Paul Wingo, and he liked my playing, and he was always getting called to play. He had his military gig, so that's a job. That's not like you can say, no, I can't make it. I've got to play at this club. So I was always getting calls from all three of those guys. Hey man, can you cover for me tonight? I have to go play for the president or something. But so that was a great thing. Danny Gatton was around then.
Oh shit, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I got a chance to know him and hear him live. I mean, I think he was probably one of the first guitar players in DC, in the DC area, that I heard.
Oh wow!
And then just after I moved there, maybe 16 or 17 years old, I was just, everybody said, you got to go check this guy out. He's amazing. But anyway, that's it's a great test. Still is. There's still some great guitar players there. I haven't been now for years.
Yeah,
so
sure.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, no, I can believe it. But I wanted to ask you first this. I watch regularly now those Live at Smalls gigs.
Oh, nice.
And I watched it the other day with Tain and the Travel Band.
Yeah.
James Francis and James, Genus, and it's just like I was like, man, I've been a fan of Tain for such a long time, and you played some crazy stuff there, man. Like, especially on those charts. I mean, his music is not really that easy. And I wanted to ask you, like, when does your story with him begin? I know you he played on your records and Double Gemini, but you know, when do you go? Way back, I guess, right?
Yeah, it actually the first time I played with him was 1987, and this is a
Already. Oh man.
connection with Gary Thomas again. It was Gary's first record for Enja Records called Seventh Quadrant.
Oh yeah, she played on
And
that one.
the band was Rini Rosnes, Tain, Anthony Cox, and there was another drummer named Billy Murphy who did some of the tracks, and Gary and myself. And that's the first time. That was actually my first recording. So it was really a baptism of fire. Like,
Oh man.
I get it. But you know, Jeff was cool, and we, you know, I kind of kept running into him over the years, and then when I moved back to the New York area in '97 was about the same time that he came back from California a little before. So I was, you know, playing in New York a lot, and I was able to hire him to play with me. And then at some point he you know, he said, hey man, you know, can you make some of these gigs? And we started playing some of his music. So that, you know, goes back to, I'm going to say 97, 98. Let's say 98 to be.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And that first band was great, man. It was Genus, Ravi Coltrane, David Budway, a great piano player from Pittsburgh, and Jeff and myself. And I mean, that was like really challenging music for me, because had been playing either, you know, straight ahead, like, you know, standards, or like some funk kind of grooves, you know, or free stuff, sort of avant-garde, like some kind of a mix of that. And so to get thrown in with like, you know, here's this tune, it's in these multiple shifting meters with like some really bizarre harmony. It's like, oh, okay. But I mean, you know, you work on it, you practice it, and hopefully it gets better.
Yeah. How do you prepare for a gig like that? Do it take a lot of time to check out the charts and stuff, or you're like a sight reader kind of thing, or both?
I mean, I it's a little bit of both. He has a lot. I mean, actually, I mean, this is just a sample.
Oh man! Oh shit!
Yeah. And you can see it's at hand. We've got a gig at the Pittsburgh Jazz Festival coming.
Oh man, beautiful.
Yeah, September 19th. And so, you know, like a lot of the stuff I have memorized just from playing it. Some of it that is more for a quintet or quartet vibe, I revisit. But basically, yeah, I play through this stuff. I work along with the recordings that I've got of it. I try to, if there are specific issues, like there's maybe there's a counting thing where you have like something that's like where it's very triplety.
Yeah, okay.
That becomes so then it becomes a different quarter note. You know, things like that I'll work on just to make sure I'm clear on what's supposed to happen. But his music, as mentally challenging as it is also very open, I find.
Yeah.
In other words, if you're playing and you're taking some chances and you're experimenting, it can go in a different direction, and that's okay with him. That's fine.
Oh, that's super. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, I make sure I learn the heads. That's the hardest part for me. The improvising is not that difficult, just because it's something that I gravitate towards. But yeah, just making sure that I'm clear on, how's this?
Yeah, sure. That it's.
Yeah, that you know, at least. So anyway, it's a work in progress for me, you know.
Yeah, no, but it's beautiful to see you guys play. I mean, never saw you live, but this footage I was just blown away, really. You know, like really, man, it sounds fresh and strong what you guys do, so it's beautiful.
It is, and you know, Jeff brings such an incredible spirit to this music. I mean, it's I can't say enough about how kind of generous he is with the space. In other words, there are some specific things, you know, he's looking to convey, but once you kind of get those, or at least get close to them, then it's on you what you want to bring to it, which is not always the case. You know, when you're working with different people's original music, sometimes they want things played a very specific kind of way.
Sure.
You know, main thing is to just bring the vibe, you know.
If you compare, let's say, to Jeff, right? What would you describe yourself as a band leader? So let's say when you did the record with him and Joey, like when these roles change, are you like a strict band leader, or like are you also like more okay?
No, I mean, I mean, I'll write the tunes, you
Yeah,
know, and I'll write them. Sometimes I'll write them with people in mind. Other times I'll just write them and say, this would probably sound good on this particular kind of a setting. And I trust the players
yeah,
that I hire to do something with it, basically. And whatever happens is cool with me. Of course, if it's something form-wise, you know, I prefer to have things be intact. You know, in other words,
yeah,
I
sure.
don't want people necessarily getting super lost. But you know, what they do with it is kind of I just try to respond to that, you know, and I like to give everybody their space to play, you know, so that there's that. And the band leader thing for me is a funny place because I have a lot of music. And when I do concerts, people seem to like it. But I'm working so much as a side man, it's really, really hard to put that to the side and just say, hey, you know, I'm just gonna focus on getting my music out there and doing that. Because, you know, you have to turn down some things.
Sure.
You know, you've got somebody gets back in the day, a 3-week tour, and you've got one concert of your own in the middle.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean,
Sure,
you're
sure.
kind of, you know, you can ask, hey man, can I do your tour and I'll pay for my plane tickets to get back to, and you get a sub for the day. It gets complicated. So,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
but you know, I'm looking forward to, you know, it's in my mind now, especially.
To make a new one, or
Yeah, to do some new recording and
super.
to kind of take this time to do some writing and get some fresh stuff. I've got my own gig coming up in the DC area. Actually, first, speaking of DC, first time I played in DC in a while now, at Tacoma Station, which was a local club that I played at quite a bit in the like early '90s, late '80s, early '90s. And they've, you know, kind of opened back up, and they're bringing in people from out of town. So I'm bringing Pat Bianchi, the organ
Oh yeah.
player, to
Wow,
come out and
beautiful.
play with me. We've got a young drummer from down there named Kelton Norris playing with us. So we'll just get in there and get down on some music. It'll be fun, you know.
That's beautiful. Yeah, come on. We need a new record by you slowly.
Yeah, you know, I guess it's time, you know. After the last one, I swore never again, but you know, the format has changed. It's actually, in some ways, I think it's less expensive to make
Yeah.
recordings because, you know, everybody's streaming. So, you know, you don't really deal with physical product as much, you know.
Yeah, it's completely changed. Yeah, recently. I mean, like in this Corona times, I've done so many records with people, you know, I haven't met in person. So in a way, it's
Wow.
helped. But on the other hand, it loses, of course, this personal,
Yeah.
which is the beautiful thing. Yeah.
Man, it's here in New York. It's been there've been a lot of recording sessions going on, even through the pandemic. You know, everybody masks up, and the
Yeah.
engineers, you know, you can't come in the control room. I mean, it's very,
Oh wow.
very, very careful and very safe. But yeah, let me see. It did Pat Bianchi's new record, Stan Killian's new record.
Oh.
Um, we did. I did something with Tain that I don't know what they're going to do with it. It's a video. I don't know if he's going to release it or not. Recording with a guy named Richard Barata, who is a film producer, who's a drummer, who's done, you know, music in film kind of a project with
Oh, beautiful.
a bunch of great players, and singer-songwriter thing with Heidi Martin, produced by Raymond Angry. It's like, you know, just a bunch
Super.
of different stuff, and everybody's in there with their masks on and trying not to cough all over everybody.
Bizarre. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a strange thing, but I mean, it's thankfully
Yeah. It's
there's some
working.
energy behind it, which is good.
Yeah. Paul, I just wanted to go back when you mentioned
Sure.
Washington. I just wanted to ask you, like, you know, you came to New York, I guess, late '80s, right? Then.
Well, I grew up in the suburbs here.
Okay.
So my family left in 1975, and you know, I would go back and forth. And then, you know, when I started playing with Gary Thomas and Joey DeFrancesco, there started to be more and more gigs here in New York, and so I would make the drive from DC to New York, and sometimes not stay the night, drive back. It's a long drive.
Yeah, sure.
So I guess I started coming back here to play. It would be early '90s. You know.
Oh, okay. So
More-
the 80s you spent like in DC.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Well, '80s, and then I stayed in Europe for about a year.
Oh, really? Oh, where was that?
No, that was 84, 85. Yeah, I was in France for a couple of months in Paris, and then
Oh,
sort of
wow.
south of Spain for about 10 months. And,
Oh, amazing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess I didn't like what was going on politically in the U.S. at that time, and let me try Europe,
Sure.
which, at the time, you didn't have quite the level of rhythm section players,
Definitely. Yeah.
particularly that you have now. Now it's like it's really great.
Yeah.
But there were some great guitar players, of course, great bass players, piano players, and it was okay for a while, But then I came back to DC, and that was that,
Yeah. No, what I mean, I wanted to ask you, like, what was this trigger for, I know your first initial connections were, I guess, Gary was really important. And I think Ed Howard, I guess, also he appears on all these records. I mean, who were like these initial guys who kind of brought you into the scene, like when you were like, let's say, a teenager or even later? How was that experience like?
Well, when I was coming up here in New York, I liked, rock and roll. I mean, that's what I played. We
Like
played
70s, Led Zeppelin and stuff. Yeah.
Led Zeppelin, sort of like jam stuff, the blues,
Sure.
this is the thing. I had friends that lived on the other side of the county, Westchester County.
Mhm.
They lived on the east side of Westchester County, and they had a band, and we did a bunch of gigs, and it was all like rock and sort of like pop stuff of the day. So when I moved to DC, I didn't really have much of any kind of exposure to jazz. I liked Mahavishnu Orchestra, and I liked Yes and
Sure.
some of Genesis, these kind of progressive rock, kind of the real high energy stuff. But I couldn't really play any of it. It's like too technically
Yeah,
challenging.
Mahavishnu, that's like, yeah.
It's like mind blowing.
Yeah, yeah.
But so the long story short, when my friends in New York found out that I was moving to DC, they had made a connection at a summer camp that I didn't go to that year. I think I went to where the heck did I go? Oh, I don't remember. Maybe that was actually no, that wasn't the year we moved. See, it's a long time ago. I don't remember exactly. But they went to the summer camp on the beach in Delaware. And they said, "Oh, you're going to DC, man? We met this really cool guy, man. You gotta look him up. The guy's name is John Mormon. John Mormon." So when I got to DC, of course, I'm bored to death. I don't know anybody there, and I'm just kind of like, what do I do? So I called this guy up after a couple of days. Yeah, my friends from New York, blah 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 blah. They told me to call you. I'm here in D.C. He said, "Oh well, we're kind of getting together on the weekend. You should come over." I said, "Well, where do you live?" He told you got to take a bus. I'm like, well, I don't know. How do I get there? So he said, listen, just go to Georgetown, which is like the sort of like a kind of central part, to this corner, and my friend who is coming also will meet you there, and he'll show you how to go because you have to walk. I said, how will I recognize him? He said, well, you'll recognize him because he'll have a bass with him, and he has a long ponytail. And this was Ed Howard. So actually, Ed Howard was the first person I met in DC.
Oh, man. Wow.
We had our first band together, actually. He was 15, I was 16.
Wow, man. I don't know. It's such a player. Incredible.
He's ridiculous. He's just he always was, man. I found some tapes of us playing when we were like 19 or something, maybe, something like that. And he was just amazing. He left DC. I think he was 18 when he left.
Oh, wow. Man.
He's been in New York a really, really long time now. Eddie's great, man. And the thing, this cat John Mormon was amazing because he had all this music. He had, this is back in the days of vinyl. So he had a room in his basement where the basement had like drums, Rhodes, guitar amps, bass amps, basses, guitars, all kinds of stuff, right? So we just go down there and jam, on whatever. And then when we got tired of jamming, we'd go into his little second room that he had in the basement, which was literally wall to wall vinyl. From floor to ceiling, and it was all organized like alphabetically. It was kind of amazing. I think it was alphabetical. And so he, everybody would be like, "What do you want to listen to?" "Oh, let's listen to Monk Train." And I'm like, "What's Monk Train?" "Okay, cool, put it on." So that was kind of like pretty heavy exposure. It was just a strange fate in a way, to get that exposure to that much music. And it was like basically every weekend I'd go over there and we'd just hang out. He lives out in San Francisco. Very good guitar player and drummer. He works with this guy Matthew Sweat. It's more like rock, folk, singer-songwriter kind of stuff. But he's great also. John is.
Check him out. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. So, but like, did you ever take lessons? I mean, I've read somewhere you studied, or I was wrong, with Joe Pass, or had lessons with him also, or like this is wrong?
Man, I had one lesson with Joe.
Okay.
I've told this story before. It's
okay.
becoming famous at this point. Yeah, I mean, the study that I had a few random teachers. I'd lived, actually, my family had lived in India for a couple of years. Like in our time in New York, we took 2 years and lived in India and then came back to New York. And I had a guitar teacher there who was kind of just, it was like chords and
that tune, India Gate, that kind of explains then.
Yeah. It was
Coltrane-ish vibe. I mean,
it's
yeah.
influential time.
Yeah.
For me, just personally, because I mean, New Delhi, India is very different than Hastings-on-Hudson, New York.
Oh, sure.
It's a different animal completely. But basically, so I'd had a few lessons. My very first lessons actually were out of Pete Seeger's book of spirituals.
Oh, okay.
So there was a guy, he was giving group guitar lessons, and it was all open chords and strumming, and here we'll play the song, "Michael, row your boat ashore." That, the Beatles, and like Santana and Motown that was on the radio. That was all the stuff that I kind of came up with. You throw a little bit of Tala and Raga up in there, and some sounds of the tambura and the tabla, and mix it with some Allman Brothers, and that's then that encounters jazz. It's kind of like a funny kind of thing that way. So yeah, that's and then when I got to DC, I took a few lessons with a local guy, like from a shop. And he kind of helped me out with a few things. But I wound up going to University of Miami in Florida just for a couple of years. And I studied with the teacher there, Randall Dollahan, for 2 years. And Randall was tough. I mean, he was just like, "You suck. You should quit." Can't play. I'd play, and he'd be like, "Wait, you just played that. Why are you playing that lick, the same lick again?" I mean, he would just bust my chops so hard.
Oh, man.
I don't know whether it was because he enjoyed doing that, or whether, it was psychologically a motivational thing. I don't know. But, it got me mad enough that I said, okay, I'm going to practice. And by the end of my 2 years there, I was like, well, okay, this feels pretty good. But actually, coming back to DC from University of Miami on the breaks, you have like a spring break and a summer break and a winter break, all this stuff. I would go and hang out and play with Ed Howard, before he would moved to New York. He was playing so good and getting better all the time, because he was playing every night. He was either going to jam sessions, or he was doing gig. People were calling him for work. Like, "Hey man, I'm a bass player." And I just realized, here I am in school. What am I? I'm not learning to play. I'm not getting any better. These guys are getting better. So I just stayed. I stayed in DC at that point. And that's actually around that time, maybe a little later, is where I met Gary Thomas. There was a group of players that would hang out in Baltimore, it's about an hour and change drive from DC. And at one point, I used to take the bus up there and hang out at this guy's crib, and we would just play like all day long, and then his wife would come home, we'd eat something, and I'd sleep on the couch, and we'd get up, his wife would leave for work, and we'd play all day long. And that was great. That was a drummer named Tony Sweet, who is now a very fine photographer. I don't even think he plays music anymore. He's like got this whole fine arts thing happening. Bob Buddha, who's a fantastic piano player from Baltimore, still playing great, plays with everybody. He was like him and Reuben Brown were the guys that got, a lot of work in the DC area at that time. And the bass player was his house was Bill Nelson, who has since passed on. But Bill was one of these guys, he just did all kinds of gigs, and he was a great player. So we had this little band. Through those guys, I found this. They would go to these sessions at these clubs, and it was basically somebody's gig, but everybody would show up to play. So it was like a invitation only kind of jam session. But the players that were there were, you may not know these names because a lot of these guys never left the area. Tom Williams, great trumpet player.
Oh, yeah, I know him. Yeah,
with the Heath brothers, Jimmy Heath for a while, among other many gigs he did. Jeff Harper, fantastic bass player, who unfortunately passed on. Is very, very. He never left the Baltimore area, I don't think. Charlie Young, great alto player. And these cats would all kind of hang, and Gary Thomas. And they would all hang at this club called the Parrot Club. There were a couple of different places. Now, I think the Parrot Club was maybe 2 nights a week. So you go and you play, until they threw you out, basically. Sure. Gary's playing always. Gary Thomas is playing really, for me. Even he was we were like a year apart. Maybe I was 20, he was 19. That sounds about right. And at 19, he had that way of playing. We called it playing in the cracks, like harmonically. Like,
that's incredible. Yeah.
I was just really fascinated. What are you thinking of? I was like, man, how are you thinking about it? And then so he would call me. We'd play duo gigs sometimes. He'd play flute.
Oh, man.
Sometimes he'd play tenor. Sometimes he'd have a quartet gig and we'd play just tunes. And then out of the blue, he starts working with Miles Davis. And then he gets a contract to
Andrei,
and he called me up and said, man, I want you to be on my first record. I was like, wow, really? Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll do it. And of course he gives me the music that we're going to be recording the day before, like on the train ride up, and I'm looking at this stuff,
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody's like, man, you want to hang tonight, man? We're going to hear Joe Henderson. I'm like, no, I think I'm going to be in my hotel room doing this.
That's really heavy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's deep. But that was the beginning of a really long association with Gary. Musically and also in the education thing. So that's so much from him, really.
I wanted to ask you, how did because when I checked the drummers on the records that you guys did, I have Exiles Gate, and I think that's Jack is on it.
Yeah.
And Terri Lyne, I think, right? No, yeah.
Yeah.
The exchange. And Dennis Chambers is on another one. And, you guys had like, Howard and Tain and, top of the top drummers. And when I listen to the records, like the vibes change constantly. But still, it's like Gary's language. But I wanted to ask you, as a guitarist in the group, how did you feel? Like playing with Jack, let's say, like that's how did the vibes change for you also, or musically? How did you feel those changes in the music? Or
well, I mean, you want to try and bring whatever you think is the right thing to the moment.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether I quite thought of it in those terms at that time, that specifically, but I mean, there was really no other choice because, like, here's the music, and now we're gonna play. And Jack was super cool, man. He was really really nice. We had fun. I learned, of course, a lot. Those dates that I did that he was on, and the rehearsals and stuff. And I had a chance to play with him a couple other times in some different situations. And I always, it's like he said something very interesting to me one time. He said, He said, you should work on Bebop Heads, man. And at the time I was like, come on, man. I'm trying to, do something else. And I realized he was exactly right. He says, because it's good for your like language and your fingers. And that's actually something I do
Yeah, fingerings, yeah, sure.
now, to this day. It's like the Bebop Heads are the things that kind of kick my butt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Whatever song you work on the guitar, yeah, it's like.
But you adjust. I mean, it's every situation is different. Even with the same people,
Yeah,
every
sure.
situation can be different. You just kind of have to suss it out. Like, what is this feeling like today? Is it, how do I feel today?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe you feel high energy and you bring some high energy, but everybody else is kind of chill. So then you say, well, okay, it's kind of chill. So let me just go with the vibe of what's happening here, and try to create something, that's unique, I guess, for the moment, unique for the moment.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Speaking of feeling the moment, when did you feel? I mean, you did like your debut as a leader in '95, right?
Yeah.
So when did you feel that was the moment? I mean, okay, it's Ed and Gary, it's kind of people from the same kind of clique of people, but when did you feel like you had the moment to do original visions? How did you decide to do that? What did lead you to that?
Well, this is in part, Gary had a manager at that time, Gary Thomas did, and from Holland, from the Netherlands, and she had a connection with Challenge Records. And,
Okay.
she said, submit them a tape. So I did, and they said, yeah, we want to record you. I says, okay, great. And so I had to think about what, I had some tunes of mine that I'd written. I think about what tunes do I want to do? Who do I want to have on the record? How do I want to go about doing this? I mean, it's funny because on that record, I think Joey DeFrancesco plays piano. I wanted to do it more as a trio record without the organ, just because I'd done so much organ by that time, especially working with Joey a lot. So it's just well, let me put it this way. The thing about doing your own projects is you have a lot of things to deal with.
Oh, sure.
So it's not like being a sideman where somebody sends you the music and you can work on it and kind of, maybe you have a rehearsal even, so you can kind of suss out what you want to do, and then you get in the studio and it's all about servicing the music. When you're the band leader, it's like people are like, hey man, when are we going to eat lunch?
Yeah.
And you're
Babysitting
like,
columns.
Okay, man. Let me see. Let me get a menu. And says, okay, hey, man. Is there can we order in? How many? You're thinking about all this stuff. So it's that's the one thing about, at least I've found about recording. Some people are really good with it. They just don't. They just are able to focus. But I know, it's you wind up. I always feel like I do better as a side man, just because I'm less distracted, But anyway, that's kind of how things happen that way. And I did a few of my own. I produced,
sure.
2 of my own, which they had good critical success. Difficult to sell them because really what I want to be doing is sitting here practicing, working on some music. I don't want to be on the phone like talking to distributors. It's just not something I found myself wanting to do.
Sure. No, it's definitely. But when you did so when I kind of check the records I have you on, or even your discography, so like we're talking about mid '90s, that must have been like crazy for you, because I see you've done your own stuff starting, then you did Gary Thomas, then of course already playing for a long time with Joey. So, and I wanted to ask you, how did the story with Joey begin? Since I think he was or is still, on organ, the prodigy was.
Yeah,
how was that moment?
He's the king, that's for sure. Still,
sure.
Today, whatever that means, but he's still, like
master virtuoso,
prodigious. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So how I met him is a really strange, like I don't know. I never really believed in fate, but recounting these stories makes me wonder. So my then wife and I were living in D.C. and we were going to go to the beach. It was a Sunday. This is in the days before cell phones, even before beepers, you had
Oh yeah, yeah.
an answering machine, like a tape at your home, right? So we get in the car and we're driving, and from DC it's usually about a 3-hour drive, and the traffic is miserable. It's horrendous, you know. So after 20 minutes of sitting in the traffic, say, let's just go home. Let's go home and read the paper and just be lazy all day. When I get home, there's a message on my machine from a company called the Charlene Jazz Society. And they say, yeah, hey, Paul. And I'd worked for them before in different capacities, like concerts and events and stuff like that. And they said, we're wondering if you're free today, Sunday. We're doing a 100th anniversary of jazz celebration at the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. And we didn't know it, but it looks like we need a guitar player, at least for Joey DeFrancesco. So give us a call back. Sound check is at 4 o'clock. So this is at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh man, wow.
Message on my machine. If I'd gone to the beach, I would have gotten the message when I got home,
Yep.
I'd be, oops, So I showed up for sound check, and nobody was around, so I went home. And then I showed up for the gig, and I think Joey liked that. Sorry, this is my neighborhood. I think he liked that. He told me, he said, "Where were you for sound check?" I said, "Man, I was here. There was nobody here, so I went home." And he said, "I like that."
The attitude kind of.
Yeah, kind of. He was a character that way. But so we played, and I think he was looking for a particular type of guitar player. And then about a month later, he called me to play some gigs, like a couple of outdoor concerts in the DC area, and then we went on tour. So,
yeah. I mean, you guys did like 10 records, right? And you probably played like
more than that.
More than that, yeah.
I think, it's funny. I kind of lost count. I think it's 19 altogether.
19? Oh man,
I do believe so. Actually,
wow.
I could look it up.
No, I'll do that. Well, I have like 3 probably. I thought, or 4, but yeah, wow, okay.
Well, he was doing at least a record every year, and so that was. I mean, I just did one with him right before the pandemic in January 2020. But it wasn't his record. It was for the pop singer Frankie Valli.
Oh, really? Oh, man.
So he brought in Joey. Frankie asked Joey to do it, and Joey brought me and Byron Landham in to play. So that was kind of a, it was interesting because Frankie sings great, man, and he was doing all standards. So it was like pretty beautiful, straight ahead, middle of the road kind of stuff. But it was it was wonderful. It was very cool.
Yeah. How was it like playing with him since you guys played for such a long time? I mean.
Oh, with Joey, it's like telepathy.
Oh well.
Yeah, it's like telepathy. Well, he's got perfect pitch and
audio,
remembering. So it's like anything you play, he knows what it is and he can remember it. So sometimes he'll quote stuff that you were playing 15 years ago, and you just laugh. You'd be like, you say, "You recognize that?" I was like, "Yeah, that was on set. We were on the tour bus and we were watching a movie and this scene came on, and then we were quoting the music from this weird scene, like for the rest of the tour, But that was 10 years ago, kind of thing. Yeah, and of course, he has that thing where he likes to be pushed harmonically, and then sometimes he wants it to settle back. So learning that, I mean, I learned so much playing with that guy, just being next to the organ and watching how he played and how he approached things, and just even physically was I mean, every night was school for me.
These were like long tours, like back in the days, like a couple of weeks in Europe, or like.
I think our first one was 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Oh man.
And that was in the States.
Wow, that's long.
I think that was 91. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, 91. We did some in Europe. I mean, and then things change over time. I mean, I'm not really working with him right now. He's doing a lot of different kind of stuff, which is also cool.
Yeah, sure.
Last time I played with him was actually that recording.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Did you ever also? I mean, of course you did, but like when I think of organ tradition, I always think Wes and Jimmy Smith and Jack McDuff and Benson and all these guys. Did you check out also these constellations in the past, or?
You know, it's funny, man. Like I did eventually over time, and of course I'd listen to some of that stuff just because it's great music, you know. I found it wasn't as useful to go in and like learn all of that stuff, because that's not really what Joey was doing at the time. My first, even before we played, you know, he was telling me, hey man, do you know, and he was naming all these tunes that Miles Davis had recorded. And, you know, he said, oh, yeah, you know, Someday My Prince Will Come, you know, like the Miles version, you know, with the intro and everything. So before my first gig, I made sure I went back and I reviewed all of the Miles.
That's oh man.
That I could get, you know, stuff I didn't have that I could get my hands on. And sure enough, those are the tunes he wanted to play. And that was kind of how he was playing the organ, was like his right hand was kind of like Miles.
Miles, yeah, wow. Yeah.
So I took the role of piano behind that. So that was my approach to it.
Man, oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's a learning experience then. I mean,
oh yeah.
Amazing. Did you also through Joey then? I watched the other day also a gig you did with Ronnie Cuber, Steve Gadd.
Oh yeah.
Was it through Joey that or?
I have a lot to thank Joey for, because he recommended me for a lot of stuff over the years, and you know, included me in projects that he was doing with other people, like, you know, the Jack McDuff stuff, the Jimmy Smith, two organ things. We did a tour of Japan that was like. I think it was Reuben Wilson, McGriff, and Joey, and I forget, me and was it Byron? I'm trying to remember. It was a while ago.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, Steve Gadd wanted to do something with Joey, and Joey recommended me. Cornell Dupree was pretty sick, I think, at the time, and not that anybody could ever take his place. I'm
sure.
not even that kind of guitar player at all. But Steve, I guess, liked what I was doing enough, and you know, we did a few tours, you know, and we did one record at least, and it was that also was a great learning experience for me.
How was he like as a band leader? I mean, and then
super cool.
Yeah,
he's just like a regular guy, you know. He's like, you want to go get a coffee, you know.
I mean, you know, it's like Steve Gadd, a guy who's like on 12,000 records or something. No, it's not, you know, it's like like every second beat you hear on the radio or jazz or fusion, it's like, that's Steve Gadd, man. You know?
I mean, you'd have to talk to him about it. My impression was that you know, he doesn't really think that much about it. He's just kind of like in the moment and you know, trying to make the music good. You know, is one of the things that he said that I thought was very valuable. He's like, yeah, we just go out there and do what we do. Like, don't try. You don't have to try to do anything. Just play like you were just, you know, playing any small club, even a big concert, you know, and, you know, let the sound person deal with it. He said that's something he learned from James Taylor. He said, you know, because you know, you don't go out there and try to, you know, do anything. You just go out there and do your thing, basically, which is, you know, great advice. You know, it was cool.
Did you ever tell like any stories, like, you know, from this 70s or stuff like that?
I can't repeat those stories.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Although I did ask him about that famous drum solo on Aja, Steely Dan.
Oh, Steely Dan, man, yeah.
I said, man, the rumor is that you went into the studio and you sight read the thing, and it was one take. And that's I mean, first of all, it's pretty involved, the tune. And second of all, the drum solo is unbelievable. The breaks that he does, you know.
Yeah. It's...
So I asked him, I said, I got to ask you this. And he said, you know, I honestly don't remember. Because he said, both him and Ronnie said that you know, during their heyday of being in a recording studio, you know, you play a gig at night and then sometimes go directly to the studio. And a lot of times they were doing, some of those cats were doing, you know, a session in the morning and a session in the afternoon. Like a recording session. Jingles, just constantly playing, you know, here, play this, we need this kind of thing, you know. So, you know, Ronnie told me, he said for him it was more like three or four times a week he'd be in there.
But still,
for somebody like Steve, he was probably like living in some of these recording studios, you know. You know, just...
I did this talk with Randy Brecker, and you know, I asked, you know, if you check Randy Brecker's, I don't know, 1974 year, he, you know, he plays like Bruce Springsteen, Joni Mitchell, whatever. If he's like on 6 million albums, does his own stuff and does gigs, and he was like, yeah,
That
man,
was kind of the crew. That was kind of the
yeah,
crew, from what I understand. I mean, like Gadd, Eddie Gomez, I guess, was in
yeah,
on a lot of that.
the Breck Brothers and all
Yeah, the
these,
Brecker Brothers, Dave Sanborn.
Barry Rogers, I guess, also.
Yep, Dave Spinoza.
Yeah,
All
I
these
mean,
different players. It's yeah. I mean, that was and that's a very specific thing. I mean, that's like kind of a skill set. I see a little bit of that, like. There was a period of time when I feel at least people that were not doing those kinds of gigs, they were more like avant-garde or maybe
hmm
straight ahead jazz players,
yeah,
whatever that even is. There was kind of one thing, but what I see now is there's like a morphing of the skill set that you need, like being able to sight read well and knowing lots of different styles and having lots of different sounds available.
yeah.
There's a morphing of that with the creative music scene. Like you see a lot of young players, they can read anything. They've listened to every hip hop record there is,
Amazing. Yeah,
sampling and stuff. I think it's some people say, oh, jazz is dead, but I think it's an interesting time for creativity. Maybe not
definitely.
what you would call straight ahead jazz. Hi, honey. Yeah, you want to say hello? Oh, this will be funny. Let's see if she poked her head through here. It's my wife. Huh? No? Okay. What? Eh? Oh, you have to go get the. Okay, right. See, you're going to get the dog. Yeah.
Yeah, come on. That's it. My cat is on the
Oh,
piano, so his.
his cat is on the piano. Yeah. Oh,
The dog goes viral. See, that's a reason for this video to go viral now because
Go
of the dogs.
viral, man. Oh, that dog is so cute. Oh my God.
Exactly. No, Paul, I just wanted to ask you.
Everything has a story. Even the
Yeah.
dog has a story. Let me tell you. No, but go ahead.
No, I just not to take too much of your time. I just wanted to ask, considering your guitar playing, what is the stuff after such a long time being on the scene and amazing stuff that you've done? What is that you work on now, let's say? I mean,
Hmm.
I'm always curious about someone like you, who's like really been doing this for a long time. What is the stuff when you pick up the guitar and it's like, well, I don't know, this is not
Well,
cool yet.
yeah, I think it's still a work in progress for me, and so I think of it like some of the stuff is technique, but not about playing fast technique, but technique of being very relaxed and hand
Mm.
positioning and some exercises. Recently, 5 years ago, I changed my picking completely.
Oh, really? How
Yeah.
come?
It's another story. So I used to play like this with the pick
hmm
up, like sort
Okay.
of, we'll call it George Benson style, and
Yeah.
that's how I've always played. But I found it was creating a lot of tension in this
Oh,
part of
yeah.
my
Shit. Yeah.
hand, and rhythmically, I felt like it was a struggle to be connected. It was much easier to play this way
Yeah.
down, but I really couldn't. I really couldn't make the switch when I was younger. I just couldn't get comfortable with it. And then one day I had a student who had an issue with his shoulder. He was born with his shoulder was messed up, and so he couldn't move it. So we were playing around with where do we put how do we
Oh,
hold
yeah.
the pick? How do we do? And I was like, well, if you try it like this, and I was like, wait a minute, that actually feels pretty good, man. So I just
Oh,
kind of
wow.
switched. Anyway, so I'll if I don't work on some exercises for that, I'll try to revert to the other ones. So that's like a maintenance thing. I started working on sight reading every day just because it's
Oh,
something that's
really?
necessary. Yeah.
How do you do that? What do you use usually? I mean,
I've got let's see. There's a Tom Brunner book, sight reading for the contemporary guitarist.
okay.
There's two Joe Viola books for saxophone that are great for sight reading, chord studies and creative reading studies.
Mm.
There's Joe Allard's what the heck is that thing called? Advanced Rhythms, I think.
Okay, to check it out. Okay, yeah, need that too. I mean, something like that.
Yeah, and then Bach, and I'm trying
Yeah,
to get my
sure.
more multi-voice stuff going on. And then, of course, Bebop Heads, some transcription, and then working on this rather large stack of music for various people,
Yeah, yeah, sure.
still playing a lot of other people's original music.
That's beautiful.
To get it. So it's it's kind of like I said, it's a work in progress, and I'll record myself. I'll be working on sound. How does the sound actually project? How does it sit in the band? Too loud, too soft, too much reverb, not enough reverb. Hearing here, just experimenting basically. And then just you go play. You just play.
You see, yeah. Cool.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing some thoughts. And
sure, man. Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Me
It's a
too.
really, really cool thing, man. And I'm looking forward to a time where we could do some playing, man. That
would be beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like,
hopefully.
I have to practice also. That's what we've been doing during this Corona. I think, I haven't played that much for a long time, since it's just like grab a guitar. It's like, okay, well, that's what I'll do, I guess. So, yeah, but it would be fun. If you're in Europe, let me know, please. Let's at least hang together or have a beer or dinner or whatever.
Sounds like a plan, man.
So,
Let's do it. And good luck with the series that you're doing. I think it's fantastic, man.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for being a part of it. I'm so happy. I'm like, such a big fan of music, so I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I hope you had some fun. Anyway, hope your listeners have some fun.
Yeah, definitely. So, thank you.
Dr. Jazz. Dr. Jazz.